Good afternoon. This is the Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session. It is Thursday, July 14th, 2022. It is 3:04 p.m. This is set to go until 3:30 p.m. This is a hybrid meeting. We're in Building 1, Room 280. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. Joining me in the boardroom is Vice Chair Ty Menser, as well as Commissioner Gary Edwards, County Manager Ramiro Chavez, as well as staff from Community Planning and Economic Development to discuss the 2022 George Open Space Tax Program application briefing, and this is only informational. So, Chris, am I handing it off straight to you?
Yeah. So we receive, CPED receives applications for the Open Space Taxation Program, and as we receive them, we bring them through the process, which goes from Planning Commission to the Board of County Commissioners. And Marissa, this year we have one application at this point in time, and Marissa's going to go through that application for you. Just a reminder that the Open Space Application Taxation Program has 4 categories, 2 which live with the assessor's office and 2 live with the Board of County Commissioners. And take it away, Marissa.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Marissa Wisman. I'm an associate planner and biologist here on behalf of Thurston County's Community Planning Division. Other work I do includes working on the HCP with Chris and other team members, and I've been conducting the interim Gopher and Prairie reviews since 2015.
Fabulous.
And I'm here this afternoon to inform you of the George Open Space application. And since it's been a while since one of these applications has been processed, I will briefly be covering the background of the Open Space Tax Program. So the Open Space Tax Program is guided by the Open Space Taxation Act, which was enacted by the Washington State Legislature in 1971 under RCW 8434. This act requires county governments to conserve open space lands, and tax reductions are granted if qualifying properties are maintained in a rural, undeveloped state. Under enrollment in open space, tax reductions are granted based on a change from highest and best use to current use, and also under the public benefit rating score, which is determined by a point rating system. As you know, in accordance with state law, all property shall be valued at 100% of its true and fair value unless exempted by law, which in this case, the Open Space Taxation Act provides an exemption for. The Thurston County Assessor's Office handles the application process for the farm and agriculture and designated forest land classifications, and also makes the tax determination decision for every application. Meanwhile, the Board of County Commissioners handles open space farm and agricultural conservation process for parcels no longer meeting the assessor's requirements, and also for other resource categories such as farm and agricultural conservation lands, fish and wildlife habitat, private recreation areas, and urban growth areas. Home sites and other non-resource areas are generally ineligible for classification, and the minimum amount of acreage subtracted for existing residential structures is at least 1 acre. Exceptions can be granted for properties with 20 or more contiguous acres. Applicants must meet the criteria in RCW 8434 and in the Thurston County Open Space Tax Program guidelines in order to be eligible. If determined to be eligible, then taxes are reduced due to a change from highest and best use to current use, with the public benefit rating system score determining what the percent reduction will be. Priority resources are given a point value and are categorized as high, medium, or low priority resources for 3, 2, and 1 points respectively, with an additional point potentially awarded for resource enhancement categories or for public access or existing historic or conservation easements. Open space applications go through a public review and a hearings process. Shown here are all of the priority resource categories, with high priority having the greatest number of classifications. There is a fee to apply, which in 2022 is $1,616. This fee must be paid at the time an application is submitted. Additionally, applicants must submit supporting documents with their application materials. So in other words, evidence that their property meets the criteria for the resource category they're applying for. For the 2022 process, we have one application in review for the George property. The applicants wish to enroll under the significant wildlife habitat area and resource enhancement categories with no public access. The applicants wish to enroll 12.12 of their 13.12 acres in open space, subtracting 1 acre for residential structures. And the property is located in the South Olympia area off Case Road Southwest. And the property is known to support a variety of important species listed in the Critical Areas Ordinance. So the landowners wish to conserve and improve wildlife habitat while continuing to graze livestock in a manner which is compatible with their conservation goals. I should have mentioned the current use is residential and agricultural. Some important features of the George property. The property is located in the Upper Chehalis Water Resource Inventory Area, or RIA 23, where riparian restoration has been prioritized by the state of Washington and tribes and the Aquatic Species Restoration Act. It is also situated in the Allen Creek Basin. As you may know, Allen Creek is known to support the federally listed Oregon spotted frog, the state-sensitive Olympic mud minnow, and a variety of other fish species, including coho salmon, resident and sea-run cutthroat trout. Allen Creek feeds directly into the Black River and Black River Wildlife Refuge Area, which is known to provide crucial habitat for a variety of wildlife. And as it happens, a tributary from Allen Creek runs directly north to south through the George property through approximately the center of the parcel. Additional features of interest, this property is closely situated to designated critical habitat for the Oregon spotted frog, is mostly surrounded by known mapped locations of the Oregon spotted frog and Olympic mud minnow that have been recorded as priority species by Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Could you repeat that whole spotted frog thing? There are some, or it's close to the proximity?
Yes, it's close to designated critical habitat for the Oregon spotted frog, and also surrounded by mapped locations, mapped by Department of Fish and Wildlife as priority habitat and species data.
So we don't know if there's Oregon spotted frog on the site, we know that the use is surrounding the site.
All right, is that part of the slideshow?
It's just what I'm going through the features on the property currently.
Oh, I thought you said something about spotted frogs.
Page 12.
Yeah, I will get into a little bit further in the presentation where there was an observation. But yeah, it also lies just south of a conservation easement managed by Department of Fish and Wildlife, where Oregon spotted frog egg masses have been observed for over 10 years in annual surveys. Contains a seasonal freshwater wetland and also open farmland and mature trees. Those photos on the right depict what the wetland looks like during the high water season, and that tributary from Allen Creek is on the bottom right photo, facing north. And this map does show some of the features I've just described. You can see the tributary, running through about the center of the property. There's also a connected ditch to the tributary that flows east to beyond Case Road Southwest. And these black triangles represent locations where Olympic mud minnow, a state-sensitive species, and CAO, important species, have been observed on site by a qualified biologist. And to partially address your question, Commissioner Edwards, where it says OSF at the southern extent of the tributary, that is where a qualified biologist observed an adult Oregon spotted frog, although they haven't found egg masses. And the remainder of those points represent where northwest salamander egg masses and adult red-legged frogs have been observed. And actually that picture to the left of the fish, that is an Olympic mud minnow, which was observed on the property during the assessment. And this map depicts wetlands on the George and surrounding properties, and also approximate locations of where Department of Fish and Wildlife has observed and mapped Oregon spotted frog, so that's those green polygons. And you can see in the yellow lettering, that's where the approximate location is of that conservation easement that's managed by DFW for the Oregon spotted frog. So as you can see, the George property is aquatically connected to wetlands which have been mapped with important species listed in the critical areas ordinance, and is situated in a place to provide desirable fish and wildlife habitat and reduce habitat fragmentation. A variety of other wildlife species, including other species listed as important in the CAO, have been observed on site, including great blue heron, nighthawks, red-tailed hawk, bald eagle, and pileated woodpecker. So for conservation proposed, the applicants wish to maintain open pasture for seasonal grazing while conducting restoration work that would focus on improving and maintaining habitat for wildlife associated with the tributary. A large body of this work would involve controlling invasive plants such as reed canary grass within 100 feet of the tributary. The objective would be to keep the grass short stature, and Oregon spotted frogs are not big jumpers and could be easily crowded out by thick invasive grasses, and also to maintain and improve flow and connectivity between the tributary and Allen Creek in the ditch, basically so it's not getting clogged up.
Don't those frogs lay their eggs on that shortcut grass or something?
Exactly, yeah, and it's kind of a common practice using mowing or grazing for reed canary grass where it's thick.
Create habitat, right?
It can be made into good habitat, and it's very difficult to get rid of just the way the root system grows. So the primary form of control for the reed canary grass and other weeds would be through rotational grazing. This would be done in accordance with a Natural Resource Conservation Service approved prescribed grazing management plan, and also through mowing, and to a lesser degree and only if absolutely necessary through herbicide treatment according to label. But mainly they want to do the grazing, which is something they've already been doing seasonally, and mowing. Cattle rotation would be achieved through features such as movable electric fences and movable watering facilities, which have been proven to be very effective in other conservation grazing projects, such as the Colvin Ranch. Additionally, vegetation filter strips would be left intact along the tributary to capture any sediment or nutrients which may enter the water bodies. And other work would include control of aquatic invasive species such as bullfrogs, which do pose a threat to the survival of Oregon spotted frog.
How do they control bullfrogs?
Basically just by removing them and killing them.
Who does that?
WDFW will permit or come out and do that.
I like bullfrog legs. Can I get on the list?
So do they actually have a program to?
They do have a program to trap.
And they trap them? We used to gig them with a light, yeah, but then we ate them too.
Probably no opposition to that.
Good.
You ate them on the spot.
Well, no. And the NRCS approved prescribed, are they doing something with NRCS?
They are, yeah, they've already been working with NRCS or have gotten their approval.
So they got some variance or easement or something going with them?
They are working with them to create the management plans. I don't know if the property owner has applied for any conservation easements through NRCS at this time.
Yeah, it's still in development. In overview, the George property meets the criteria for enrollment under the significant wildlife habitat area and resource enhancement categories for 4 points and a 50% reduction. They meet the criteria for the following reasons. Priority species, or an important species listed in the critical areas ordinance, have been documented on site by a qualified biologist. Supporting documents, including a habitat management plan, were submitted with their application materials. Biologists from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Natural Resource Conservation Service have visited the site, and these are biologists with expertise in Oregon spotted frog and riparian habitat. And Natural Resource Conservation Service is working with the landowners in development of a long-term conservation grazing plan. Enrollment of the George property in open space creates an opportunity for one of the largest intact, privately owned, managed habitats for Oregon spotted frog in our area. It's also consistent with Thurston County's strategic plan, item 7, to balance development with the preservation of the county's rural character, natural areas, and open spaces. Staff recommends approval of the classification of 12.12 acres of the George property, qualifying at a 50% reduction as open space land for current use assessment. And that concludes my presentation, Commissioners. Do you have any questions?
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Okay, the 50%, let's see, a couple of questions here. Do you have, if we grant this, is there any impact on adjacent properties or surrounding properties in the area? Does it affect other properties with, hey, you can't do this because this neighboring property is in an easement?
It puts no restrictions on the other properties surrounding the applicant's property, if that's what you're asking.
I guess, yeah.
So no, it would not, in that regards, it would not affect the adjacent property owners. They would still be able to do what they're doing out there.
I guess the reason I asked that, like the pocket gopher, when we were going through all that, if you had a pocket gopher living here, you know, this guy couldn't do something here because he's next to the pocket gopher. Same way with butterflies, I thought.
So it's somewhat similar, but because the Oregon spotted frog lives in our wetlands, we already have rules and regulations governing those wetlands. So even if the George property didn't come in for this particular open space application, property owners wouldn't be able to impact their wetlands without the appropriate permits. So this application doesn't affect or change that statute.
Okay. How much money does the property owner save in property taxes on this?
So,
I mean, it says 50%, but what does that mean
right, so it's 50% of their assessed tax for that particular year
for that parcel?
for that parcel for those 12.12 acres. And we did ask the assessor's office that question because it comes up a lot. And their answer is that's difficult to tell you because we don't know what the assessed value is at this time. What they did do was provide us an example of the savings that would occur if they had been enrolled last year for this tax season. And that 50% reduction, let's see if we can find that information, would have been somewhere in the neighborhood of about $440 this year if they had already been enrolled.
Per year?
And
That would be kind of for every year,
on
right?
average,
Roughly.
roughly.
Why is it that we charge so much for this program, the $1,600? I mean, if it's a benefit, I don't know, to society, to water, whatever it is, why don't we make it easier for people to make this application? The average between King, Pierce, Snohomish, Whatcom, Lewis, Clark, Grays Harbor, and Skagit averages out to $575, and we charge twice that much.
Right, great question. And that, so the fee structure is based on the approvals from the board.
Yeah, I mean, but if we want to make this an attractive proposal, why don't we do something besides penalize people all the time? Okay, that's not your problem, that's our problem, it sounds like.
But that will be coming before you in the very near future. So open space criteria and the application fee in general is part of our agricultural, community-driven agricultural project that has been docketed. And the board will be seeing suggested changes to this particular program along with other agricultural programs in the very near future.
Okay, I buy this property 10 years from now, it's been in the program, so it's $4,000 or something, have been benefited to the property owner. And I want to make a, I don't know, what, a golf course or something. But anyway, I want to do something with it other than this, for whatever reason. Is there some kind of a penalty buyout or something that would go along with the sale of that property? So if he wants to do something, like a lot of times it's a 7-year penalty, you have to I don't know if this is this 7?
7.
Oh, it is 7, okay. So does that apply if he sells the property, the new guy has to pay that 7 years back taxes at the current rate?
That is correct. The new property owner would either need to enroll into the open space program and follow the rules, or they would have to pay the penalty to come out of it.
Who's the rural policeman here? Is that
The
us?
assessor's office.
Do they pay attention?
They do.
Do they?
7 years of the 50% that they got off?
Yeah.
To get out?
To get out.
Yeah. And that's the same way in timber tax or other stuff too. Okay, I just don't know why we're charging them so much to do something
So,
better.
remember the fee structure the board approved is full cost recovery.
So 100% recovery, yeah.
So, those counties, and the reference you made to those counties, at least I know, the Pierce County, the general fund subsidizes some of those fees.
Okay,
And certainly, the board has the opportunity to subsidize any of the fees with the general fund.
okay, let me just say this. Why do we make a citizen go through all this and create the burden on staff to monitor all this, the submissions, the presentation, good presentation, by the way? Why can't Chris just walk in here and say, hey, we got a good chance to save some property out here, it's good for the environment, and why don't you do this? And we all give her a thumbs up and it's done, and we do it for $12.50.
Because in the past, I have been asked not to bring an item to the board without giving you all the full
I
information
know,
before you make a full
I know.
and informed decision.
Bureaucratic process
You know,
is killing me.
it's the request from the Board of County Commissioners.
So there is also some laws and rules and procedures built in around this particular.
That we have to follow
That
and
we
do
have
this?
to follow, yeah, so.
The next step in this process is for staff to bring an AIS for you to set a public hearing.
Jeez.
Public hearings required?
Yeah, because the other individuals need to have the opportunity to say, because just remember, when you have a 50% reduction on this, it is redistributed to the tax district.
Because of the levy?
Yes.
So the county doesn't
We don't get
lose
less, we don't lose
property.
anything.
So,
It's just
and that is-
Retail pays a little more.
and that is the purpose of the public hearing, because all the other individuals within the taxing district who may be affected by this action, it will be an increase on their taxes.
So they all might pay $10 more or
I
whatever.
don't know, but
A tiny, a fraction of a cent, right?
It is a fraction of.
absolutely it's a fraction, because the taxing district is large, big. But they have the opportunity to say A or nay to you. So that's,
But we get the final say on that, right?
absolutely, you always have you're the,
Yes.
It's a councilmatic decision. Point that out. You see it, mates?
so that is the key of the process, you know.
Mr. Hunter, questions?
This is random, but since you showed me these priority categories, I got inquired about a golf course. And you're laughing, but
It would fall in.
I looked at it and said, and I'm like, well, it's a private recreation area, I don't know, it's either in or right next to the UGA, so you've got two categories of urban growth area, open space, but I assume it's not open space, because they were told no.
They could apply, and we would then apply the recreation criteria against that. Typically, a golf course doesn't either score high enough to make it worth it to the property owner or qualify at all.
What kind is the recreation, or does it have to be?
From a recreation standpoint, usually an open scenic, like one of our county parks, trails could meet those requirements. Typically, a county park like or a city park meets those qualifications.
So, okay, so there's recreation is like definition. What about open space? I mean, is there a specialized definition? I mean, a golf course to me is like, in the middle of a bunch of houses is open space compared to all the development around my neighborhood. This is buried this is Olympia
Right, okay,
Country Club,
right.
buried right in the middle of housing. So it's open space, I mean, it's not like probably not gonna be spotted frogs and habitat, but that's a different category, habitat. So I wasn't sure, I mean, I'm just wondering, why does it fail? What's not good about it? If it's it's in the UGA, it's open space, it's never gonna be allowed to become just houses and streets and pavement. It's great recreation for older people to walk around. Now, it is private and you have to, like Commissioner Edwards said, rich people, but that's not a, you've got a category here that says private recreation area, which suggests that access can be limited and restricted and not open to the public. So I'm just wondering, why doesn't it fit? Because I had a hard time telling them why they were told no.
Oh, they already applied, they say
No, they asked me, they had a meeting with me. A new group of people took over that country club because it was about to be lost. It's a citizen group,
Okay,
but they have to they don't know how to manage it, they don't know, they're trying to figure out how they make ends meet and not lose it. And they were just exploring all possible options so they asked me, we've heard about this, would this apply? So I looked at the statute and I said, maybe, talk to these guys, I heard back from them that they were told no way. But I don't know who they talked to.
And I don't know who they spoke with either.
And I didn't question it, because I can understand why you might not consider golf course. But I'm just saying, by looking at the categories,
Yeah, and
it seemed like maybe it would work.
and they don't want to spend the $1,600 just to go
Find
through
out
the
no.
process to
Yeah,
find
they're
out.
told probably
I
no.
understand it, I get it.
They're broke already,
Right, they're broke, they're trying to figure out how they're gonna keep this thing afloat.
and the county would just soon put a parking lot there.
Probably.
Right, I mean, that's about what it equates to, is let's make it difficult to have the worms, or the rain get down in impervious soil, all that. I don't understand it either, it drives me nuts.
so there is specific criteria for each of those that are not fully developed in that particular PowerPoint.
Yeah,
They're all online and I can get you that information.
just curious. But I think I understand this one pretty good.
Now, that is a very good question. I wasn't approached by those individuals. I've only recently taken over open space from Andrew DeFavis, but that's
Okay,
something
And the
interesting.
board will have an opportunity to take a look at all of this when we bring it back to them under the CPA 16 of the comprehensive plan.
and that's ag.
That's the ag, community-driven ag project.
2 questions for me, are you done?
Go ahead.
I have one more too.
Okay. My first question is, I knew beforehand our ag advisory would provide comment on this. Is that part of the process? Is that gonna come later? Is that gonna come in during public comment? How is that going to work?
So we've already brought the agricultural portion of the open space process.
We have a 2:30 meeting here, and the finance committee have a special meeting here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So they-
we're going out the door, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
they've
Just
made,
1 second, okay.
they have already made the comments and we've already processed those comments. So you'll see their suggested recommendations when we bring the open space program back to you.
And then one more question, please. My next question is in regards to the Oregon spotted frog, right? If we were to preserve this, does that count for us for mitigation credits?
In this situation, it would not. However, these open space projects and applications are where we're starting to look at engaging those property owners. So in the future, it may very well.
Hey, do we keep a record of all these spaces that we approve?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then the other, when we go into public hearing, could you show the whole taxing district that is affected and be able to say, this is gonna, I don't know, be 10 cents on your additional
That
tax?
will not be, because that's the assessor's job.
Okay,
We
well,
will not be able to state
have
that.
the
because-
assessor do it.
Well, that will be difficult, because the assessment comes next year.
Okay, just roughly, I mean, why can't we say, it's gonna be 20 cents for each
Because
one
they-
or something?
Because they're gonna take that and take it to the bank.
What?
Okay, 3:33, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
adjourned.
Good job.
Good job, very good job. Thank you, ladies.
My first 3